Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane, Mark, and Molly.
Sup, Molly?
Yeah, Molly's just
She
getting
left me. She got mad because, well, she was here and then I kind of.
She got mad because she got booted from her seat. She came early today and then got moved. So
She tried to claim it
yeah,
while I was
she's
setting up.
she's missed how many days. So, but again, she's here with us. We're happy to have her.
I mean,
Say hello to
pretty
me.
much. I haven't been here in a couple days myself. I think the 13th was the last time I was there.
Oh yeah,
So here we are on the
but
15th. Man, that face, that
yeah, I get it, Molly, because it's about you and your dad made it about him.
interesting.
Don't. You're getting her fired up again.
Tell cute Molly,
Okay. Back to getting pets.
the goddess.
Anyways, today is May 15th, and we are starting off week 3 of May already. So we are in the third and final month of spring, and we are in week 3. So we only have 2 more weeks left of this month, and a few days change. But this week is all about the sacred body and desire. So this week is interesting in a lot of different ways, and we're going to look into that and dive into it because with creation and fertility comes the sacred body and desire, right? We've talked about a few different things that hold life already the past 2 weeks,
Right.
but now we get to kind of dive into just why it has to be held. What is so sacred about the bodies that are keeping life?
Mm-hmm.
So, but with that in mind, we have week 3, the sacred body and desire. And this whole month is centered around the archetype of the life giver. Okay, so it's not just the person that carries life is the one giving life, right? There are a lot of different aspects to it. Sometimes life isn't carried within either, and it's carried in something completely separate from, any parent or anything like that as well. But May 15th, we actually start off with a form of desire. Okay, so today is actually the hunger, May 15th, in regards to desire itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so our theme is that desire awakens life. So we have this almost negative, like feeling centered around the word desire. It's almost
Right.
utilized.
Because the way we use it, yeah, like, oh, you desire something, so it has to be a negative thing.
Okay, sorry, continue. But yeah, society's kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, but like the desire for life, like the desire to do something amazing. Like I have the desire to write these epic tales that we're writing, these epic chronicles that we're writing. I have a desire to help people find healing that they've been searching for, change what the desire is. And I think, people will start to catch on, especially listening to these stories.
So I'm gonna go right into, and I had no intention of doing this, but I'm actually gonna stir today's talk in a whole different direction than I anticipated in it. Because I'm gonna go with what you were saying and the lesson of wanting births movement. So your desire is there for a reason. No, I'm not saying that as oh, I desire it, so therefore I'm being told to go chase it and using that as an excuse for temptation. Because temptation versus desire can be very, very different things, right? Desiring because it lights your heart and your passion and your spirit on fire versus desiring because not the sacred body, but the sinful body kind of lusts after it. Difference between lusting, because it doesn't have to be another person to be lusted after.
That's true. Like food can be lusted after.
Right.
Food, drink.
Money is probably the biggest thing. Titles.
Titles.
So that's kind of where I was originally going to go and then flipping it into more of a positive. But I think I'm just going to kind of skip all that because of something that happened today and what you were just talking about, how you're excited to the desire to write books. It was honestly one of the first conversations you and I had. If not, it probably came up the first night, second night, right? But when we were talking about our own book, and I said, oh yeah, I kind of thought about changing this and adding 2 more elements here. Here's why. What do you think? And you just got so excited because it gave you an opportunity to write more of the short stories in there. Like it's more of the legends, campfire tales. And I don't know, it just got me so excited because when you were sitting here thinking about that, I just could picture you. You're getting our campfire ready for this summer,
Mm,
right? So you're setting up a whole new thing in our yard, and I can just see you practicing it. So, like me saying, okay, here's the legend that we want to be told. Now tell it as a man telling campfire tales, you know?
right.
So you're going to get, and you even talked about how you wanted to do more, like speaking, just practicing it more for both your comedy as well as your QHHT, as well as like just leadership talks as well. But
Mm,
you get to see, you get to do that. And it just made me excited. So sometimes our desire to write a big book, a novel,
mhm.
okay, that desire makes us move. And then we realize as you're moving towards that, there are all these other little elements you find that you're even more excited for
Yeah.
or that you didn't even think of. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? With that in mind, how does that make you feel about the word desire and your own story with the, or your own path with story writing?
Yeah, I think just you can take any word and turn it into anything, honestly. Words are extremely powerful and the meaning behind the word. And you can add fluff, I think, behind words and be like, well, it's not meant like that. People, I think, energetically know when it's meant a certain way, one way or the other. So if I truly mean something positive, where you could truly take it the wrong way, but I can fix that in the way where you would be like, okay, that felt right.
Mhm.
Maybe I did take it the wrong way. Personally, I know I've done it. But when someone means it in a different way and they still try to say, oh, that's not how I meant it, you feel the fact that now that the way you said it, that's exactly how you meant to say it. There's nothing behind it. When you start truly getting behind the energies of things and really feeling what these words meant or can mean, if you mean it in the right way and you choose to mean it in the right way.
So then taking that and with what I just shared about you, how you may not have meant to show that much excitement, right? People all the time get excited and then almost like retreat from being excited.
Right.
How do we get I mean, what do you think? How do we get people to that? Like you today. I mean, you have an easier time accepting things because we are pretty open about a lot of stuff. Um, and so we have that talk a lot. And so yeah, you're excited, you're pumped, but how do we keep that alive in people to where we don't retreat back into ourselves? Because we do live in a society where we are told, don't get your hopes up,
Right.
expect the worst or prepare for the worst, expect nothing, you know? So how do we keep that excitement alive? You know, that hunger, that desire, and allow ourselves to go, you know what? I am excited about this because I am going to accomplish something.
I think that's each person's own journey, honestly. And who am I to say what they aren't doing isn't that? I don't know what they've done in the past. So how am I to say what they are or are not doing isn't just as epic as something that I do? Because the scales might be different. My epic could be something way up here. And it kind of goes back to the story of, man, I could be driving in my truck that I have now, right? But let's move it back to the one that I was driving when we went to go to get that one. And I was seeing it go by and I was like, oh man, that's a nice truck, right? I'd love to have that. But as we were driving to the dealership, I could have passed somebody in a car or a smaller truck looking at the white truck that I had, thinking to them thinking, man, that would be nice to have that truck. And then somebody else in like a tiny little car was looking at that person in the truck that liked my truck. And they were like, man, it'd be nice to even have a truck
Right.
instead of a car. And then someone on a bike was riding by the person in the car that was wishing they had the truck that now that person in the bike.
Yeah.
So each person's thing is that's what I'm saying is like it's hard to judge what their excitement is without knowing what their journey is to light it up. So,
know what I'm saying? Like when I just told you, like of your story, when you see it in someone, and how do we keep people like feeling like they can feel that way and not retreating back in on themselves, to allow
the
them.
best thing is to show everybody the light and for us to not judge them when they bring it out, you know, help them keep it lit, be that barrier in the wind for them to keep it lit. It's truly a village thing, like we've said, like it's a community. If we don't help our neighbor out, what are we truly doing? We're just being selfish. That's not truly being the way we are preaching, right? We're saying, hey, we should be this great. Well, then I think we should help. So I think a good way to keep hunger alive is to do our best, do whatever we are doing to the best of our ability. If I show someone else that I can do it, that I believe could keep that lit up in them. If I'm like, look at what I did, and this is what I came from. So then looking at those little tangents I went off on, you can almost use it like everybody's looking at it. Well, yeah, you're looking at this because look what I did. I'm going to be that example. What is your side of it? Like maybe even do the same questions to yourself. How do you help people keep that desire, you know, to move forward within themselves, to have that light bright? How do you do that?
I think it's kind of like a mix of things. I think it's both an aggressive and a very careful thing to help other people keep that desire, because it's a very fine line from encouraging someone to continue to be their unique self and pushing them forward as to almost crushing their spirit. I think that's a very fine line. And maybe I just feel that way as being like a lot more like feminine than I ever used to be. I used to be like, 3 sport varsity athlete, like 2 sport all state athlete, and just getting pushed in that the competitive and the language that you hear in that world. And I just don't care for it anymore. I don't like being pushed in that way. Like, I don't like being yelled at. I don't like being, like, almost humiliated or intimidated or anything like that.
Mm.
Competing with things, that's just not my forte anymore. And so I've learned that helping someone keep that desire is like just like kindling a fire.
Yeah.
You cannot ask it to be anything other than what it is. You can help it grow, but sometimes you overfeed it and almost kill it,
Yeah.
you know? Sometimes you have to leave it alone, and you leave it alone for so long that it's turned into something you never would have imagined it to be, you know? So that's kind of what I feel like is that we got to, I like think that we just got to be very careful with it, because like you see it all the time. People say one thing to somebody and they stop chasing their dream. It like kills that desire in them. And no, we should never let anybody kill our own dreams and desires. But when we're kids, like that's the scary part, is that that behavior begins because when we were younger, somebody told us that we were wrong to have that feeling.
Yeah. 1,000,000%.
And that's when I think we go from desire into that temptation lust stuff, because it's a whole different mindset and it's almost like corrupting it because it makes more sense because that's what everybody wants. So that's kind of what I was thinking of too.
I should.
But
I like that. I like that aspect of it and that outlook on it.
and I'm not saying that if you compete for something that it's bad. I'm just saying that I don't like doing it anymore. Like I don't feel like I have anything to prove, and I was only in that world because I always had to prove myself. But now I'm looking at desire, and back then, desire meant something very different. And I didn't like myself, and I still, when I was a little bit out of it, it was hard to come out of that world. Um, but I'm happy where I'm at now.
Yeah. That's good. That's the biggest thing I think is it's not where you were, it's where you are right now and where you're like, what are your plans? Like, it's not necessarily looking too far in the future. Have a plan for it, but Where did I come from? You personally, these are all personal questions. Where was I at? Where am I at right now? Okay. I'm way better than I was then. Cool. Now pat yourself on the back. Take that because you improved yourself. Nobody else improved you. You took what you thought was right at the time and what you felt at the time was right and or not, but you learned from it and you chose to learn from it. And now look at you. Look how much better of a person you are because you chose to learn those lessons. That's beautiful.
It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier and how we were both like into marine biology and stuff when we were younger. And you were saying like for just whatever reason you didn't pursue it and stuff. I was told I wasn't good at science by a teacher, and that but
Stop.
I was told I was not good at math, so I dropped math. Like teachers were the reason that I dropped my dreams all the time. Coaches were. And
Like blanked it out to where it could have been the same for me. I don't know.
yeah, like that. You just kind of get into this, well, because it shocks your system.
Well, look at where, so like,
Like, be more realistic.
yeah,
Like,
things you should never say
you
to
guys
change.
that are giving us these opportunities are saying, but be realistic. Look at where you're at.
Yeah, but
If you're not equipped to give me my best future,
then
why are we even having this conversation? Yeah. And so, like, I think that that's just a constant cycle. I mean, I've been a teacher, and it's because, like, that was never my dream when I was younger. And I think that's why it was like, I can just not be doing it anymore.
Yeah.
But I hate the fact that that's just how people settle into stuff because I want you to make your dream because I didn't even chase mine. And it's like I became this person that I felt like I was protecting kids from those teachers that were still teaching them that had crushed my spirits. And then they did it as adults, to other adults still. It's like stay in your lane. If you desire too much and then you could possibly achieve it, and that's
Then it makes people unfortunately feel like they didn't do that great. So they're going to keep you down. That is something that we unfortunately have to deal with sometimes. And it's just staying away from it. And that's kind of why earlier I said, sometimes it's good to not say what your dreams and aspirations are because then people can't stop you if they don't know what you're doing. Somebody had said something to me walking out of work the other day, and they're like, "You don't post at all." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't need to anymore. I used to. I used to be that person where everything I was doing, I was always posting something. But I just feel like it's none of your business now. Like the everyday things that when we're hanging out with the kids or doing this or that or doing stuff out in the yard. Like, yeah, I'm keeping pictures and documenting it. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm just not showing it to everybody.
because you don't have to prove it anymore.
No, I don't. I really don't. And it's going to be for me. It's going to be parts of like the documentary or something, me moving on and doing all this stuff.
Yeah. It's just, it's hard too because I think, you can get emotional about it and blame whoever you want to. Yeah, I blame that teacher, but ultimately it's on me. And that's the worst part about it is that being an adult and realizing that you killed the child in yourself before it was time. As an adult, there comes a point where you have to kill your inner child. I'm not saying get rid of the goofiness, the fun, adventure, the stuff. I'm saying the kid that had a different perspective and forgiving them and letting them go to rest, saying it's okay. The world is what it is. The innocence is gone. But then also having to sit there and apologize because you killed it too soon
Yeah.
when you were a child and you've just been holding on to that sense of what if. And it's like, you know what? It can't be a what if anymore. It might be a future thing still. It might be right now or in a couple months, but it's no longer what if I had done that because I have to forgive that child for killing that dream because that's what happened. And it's okay. Because so often we blame others, but in reality, we are blaming ourselves. We're blaming that little kid, and we're just another adult that didn't believe in that kid. And that's what sucks the most. And so we just got to do what we think really truly is best. And I love that the four stories that are going to be heard today, it's chasing desire, as in, if you don't got anything to chase, how can you still measure your life? I'm not saying it has to be anything crazy at all. We get to see the destruction of desire,
Mm.
and how it does hurt the world. And it's in ways that we may not think of, but then when we hear the story, it's, wow, that really is the earth saying desire was killed. And now we're in some harsh times until that desire comes back, that life comes back.
Right.
So we get to see that a little bit as well. And then we get to see, I don't know, these stories aren't necessarily happy, necessarily sad. I mean, they're all the above, because to desire something, to have a hunger for something, to love something so deeply that you're willing to move forward to chase for it means that you're willing to risk the void that will come inevitably from it. And I'm not saying that love always ends or anything. I'm saying that life ends for everybody. No matter what you do, no matter how much I love you, that will not keep you here.
Mm.
It could keep fragments of you, but even if it's fragments of you, it's my perspective of who you were. You're not here anymore.
Yeah.
And so y- I think that inspires us to move towards our desires faster because we're already on the clock. We already are. And the fact that it's there and the fact that I'm willing to think about all these ways to get it, to become this, it's just showing us that the clock's ticking and it's ticking a whole lot louder when you realize your purpose,
Yeah.
your desire, the things you're willing to sacrifice for. And so we're kind of taking desire and we flipped it from you hear some negative things to hear some positive to now here's the sad reality is that to love something, I mean, you cannot feel the extreme highs without knowing and meeting the extreme lows in life, like to appreciate them. And so we're going to notice as well today, we're going to notice a craving and honor it gently without judgment or excess. So we're going to honor a craving today. We're not going to go overboard. We're also not going to self analyze or, guilt trip ourselves or anything like that. We're just going to honor it and allow ourselves to acknowledge, why. And then we're going to walk away thinking to listen to desire as information rather than a command today. So our desires say a lot about who we are in this present moment. We could have had desires before that were like, wow, I definitely don't desire that anymore. But at one point, I would have given all of this for it. So that's an interesting thing as well. It's all just information on who we are.
Right. Well, and as you were talking, my number one desire right now that popped into my head when you said desire was the conversation you and I had a little while ago today of laying inside the sarcophagus in the king's chamber in the pyramid and doing that vibration now. That is my number one desire right now in this moment. That's what I want. 1,000,000% I can feel it. And I know you're saying you're feeling something else. And that's friggin' great because whatever I'm doing that is going to cause me to be able to be in that reality where I'm in that moment, it's going to afford you yours too. It doesn't have to be just a one thing when you truly want to live and embody that desire. I think if it's something for the good, because I believe something really, really, really good is going to come of it. I'm not doing it for a selfish reason. There is, in a way, it's selfish, but I believe with whatever is going to come from that, it's going to be good for the masses, not just for me.
Mm.
So I think when your desire lines up with good for others, man, I think that's when magic
Well,
truly
it's also
is.
a good desire for yourself as well. But yeah, I get
For sure, for sure.
it's interesting though, because I think that want and desire is truly only separated by action. Like how I told you, you and
Yeah.
Layla. You guys are very I've seen you both say that you want to do things. You plan stuff. Okay, cool. I've come to know you guys in a short time. that if you guys actually desire something, you get it done. And nothing else is really a desire. It's just kind of when we get to it, we'll get to it. And it's both fun and extremely sad and frustrating sometimes when it's something that I want that's on that want, not desire list.
Yeah.
But it's fun to see how you guys take initiative when it's a desire. And we talked about that with her, like learning piano, and we raved about it so many times. And no, she's not the only one. All four of your girls really truly do have something they desire.
Right.
They approach that desire differently too, which is interesting. But she is very much like you. Your oldest girl, she is a locked and sealed box.
Right.
She is in the stage right now where she's keeping a lot of stuff to herself, or she's sharing certain fragments with friends because that's the stage in life where she's at. Right. But the second, right, is very much like dad in the sense that I'm going to rely on myself. And I think it's funny because she's in the same exact position that you were in your sibling order.
Right.
So it's just another thing. But watching that at work is I do like it. And you can tell the difference. Like you said, today I know you didn't care about whether you went to the game or not. I'm not saying that you didn't care whether you were there for your girl.
Right.
It's hard to sit in a little league game when the kid doesn't care.
Yeah.
And she doesn't.
No,
care.
that is not her passion.
She does not give no. I mean, she's a right fielder in Little League in a small town that doesn't have a whole bunch of resources.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm saying at a younger age, at a really little age where she's out there because she likes being outdoors. But she's a gymnast, a dancer, a cheerleader. That's who she is. That's where she shines. She's there to pump people up. But gosh, that's it. She's like, yeah, I'll stand in this box and I'll hold the bat up. And if I swing, I swing. But if not, mom base.
Yep.
Like, and she has so much potential as an athlete. Will she be good at softball at certain positions? Absolutely. Certain batting techniques, yeah. The desire is not there.
She's just like, whatever.
But she's probably the most open about her desires.
Right. What she wants. Yes.
She's pretty good too.
She's more into the drawing and but yeah.
But the youngest one, she has that type A female personality of very in the spotlight. I know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm confident with who I am because, I'm a good person. And like I can put you in great spirits and I could tear you down. It's scary at that age because she's right at that age. But
oh yeah, you heard him arguing out there about like her trying to walk in front and then
you said pause.
You said wait. And then she's just standing there and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're really talking about.
And she's like, no. You said it like 4 times and we're just like.
I just sat there as a parent in the outfield because what's super funny is that I don't know if the parents noticed that those two were arguing, but like they've been BFFs since they were like infants, but they were sitting right next, and I'm just sitting there like, get them.
Yeah, just like they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But that's another reason why she's there. It's a fine line desiring and doing something because your friend is doing it and they desire it and they want you there.
Right.
But and so there's that aspect too. Yeah. And right now we're in an age where it's socially
right.
But that friend is in the thing that she desires to be in too.
100% to where, yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff with that. People will present it differently. People will chase it differently. And being loud and proud doesn't mean that you desire it more.
Correct.
Right? Keeping it secretive doesn't mean you're going to get there faster or do a good job. It depends on all these different factors.
You need that help too, though. You talk about it because you need that reassurance and you need the help. Everybody is different. What works for me it will not work for you either.
All right.
Like, because it works for me, it's just like that saying, I can give you all the information in the world, but what you do with that information is your choice, not mine. And I shouldn't hold that over your head like, well, I told you. Okay, but it doesn't mean that that's for you. That information could be as useless as stepping on dirt before you step on grass. Like, who cares that you did? Like, there was a useless statement. That's what I got to treat the information like, because what you do with it is your choice. And if you can utilize it, great. If not, oh well.
Yeah, and that I mean, that's part of growing up too.
To learn that.
That's like
Yeah.
being a parent is when you give them the information. And I mean, seriously, my parents looking me in the face knowing damn well I was gonna take this information and go, "Bet, bet.
Oh.
You haven't met me though, have you? Hi." And like
Well, yeah, you're the youngest, you were the like,
I think I was in like my maybe 19, early 20s when they all openly said, if I tell you not to do something, you're gonna do it. So what kind of do you want advice? Do you want me to listen? Like, because I already know if I share what I think and it's like trying to influence you, doesn't matter what you were initially going to do, you're going to go the opposite of what I tell you, pretty
mm,
much. Like that almost like when I was really struggling with my mental health, it was almost that like mental self-sabotage.
yeah,
That detachment kind of thing. Oh, I know, well, this will upset you, so then they won't have any expectations of me being a better person.
right.
And so that's a part as well. But yeah, we're going to listen to our desires today as information. So now we're not listening to others, we're listening to our own instincts today. And yeah, I'm saying instincts with desires because sometimes we have to go, my desire is to flee this situation. My desire is to say something, and I have to distinguish whether it's going to be helpful or harmful, because sometimes we have that on biting my tongue because that's desire, either to prove ourselves, to correct something, to whatever it may be.
Right.
So we're going to just really pay attention to that today and take in all that information. And maybe we realize I used to desire these really bad and I didn't even have that at all today. No. Or, wow, something that used to consume all my thoughts is still consuming part of my thoughts. I thought I was moved on from this thing, but it's still there. So maybe I go back to it, I re-explore it, whatever it may be. So there are a lot of things we're going to do with that today. But we are kicking off the week of the sacred body and desire.
Mm.
And I really like this image. I'm just re-looking at it because in my mind, it's a little bit of a picture almost of like Adam in the garden. Okay, it's not full like nudity or anything like that.
Okay, yeah, no, because that picture is what the one person turns into. That's the man, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, and
But
it's
he's in
one
the
of
garden.
our
I like that.
yeah.
Yes.
So if you look at it in our entry, so
Yeah.
if you're looking at this, or if you're just listening to our podcast, if you go to YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But it's the third or fourth image change you'll see in Sacred Body and Desire. You'll know which one it is. It looks like Adam in the garden.
Right.
Is in my depiction of in my head, what it was. I'm not at all saying that that is what it is, but that's kind of what I took it.
Each and everybody has their own depiction.
Right. So this whole week we are focusing on it. And with Sacred Body and Desire, I'm just going to kind of share what that means because I don't want people to think, yes, we got to talk about sex this whole time
Right.
because
Yeah.
that's not.
It's the first day of the week. We're going to let you know.
And so I'm just going to share tomorrow. So the 16th is going to be the dance. So almost expression, getting kind of the pattern of what we're going through. The next day will be the union. So we're going to look at some influential partnerships. Okay. Then we get into the conception. And again, please don't think that it's going to be just like a sex talk because it's not. We're talking about the sacred aspects. And I really want to emphasize that because I'm not at all saying that the sexual side is negative. I'm just talking about the sacred part of that sexuality, that union. And then we get into the beauty. And that one is both within ourselves and a little bit of like almost the peak beauty. And no, I'm not talking about like Helen of Troy or like Cleopatra or like human things. We're talking about like the deities of beauty and what that means and what else comes along with that. Then we get into the softness that comes with Sacred Body and Desire. And then we end it with the birth, of course. Okay, so we're right at the birth. So there's a lot, and I hope that that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what this week has, because I mean, when I was first setting it up, I kind of laughed and was like, oh my gosh, people are gonna think that it might just be a week full of like,
This is going to be a naughty podcast.
yeah, they're like, I've been waiting, yes. Creation. Let's get to creating, all right?
Let's create some magic.
Also realizing that it's not all a negative thing. All of these things are going to talk about that in one way or another.
Right.
We know that desire, some of that comes with desiring others,
Yeah.
right?
Or what they have.
Or what they have, or what they can create, or what they are creating. There's so much to go with it. It is a fun, beautiful, exciting week. It's going to go fast, and then
I mean, look at this year.
yeah, because June, when we're done with June, we've already finished half of our year-long podcast. We're halfway through a everyday thing. And I feel like when you hit me mentally, whenever I hit my halfway mark, because I break things down. Oh, I'm like 30% done.
I have done that. I do that when I'm
Yeah.
exercising,
Yeah.
when I'm on a treadmill, and
I
I'm
know.
like getting in my head. I'm like, no, but I've already done this much. Holy cow. Like and I'll psych myself into doing more because that's how I break things
And
down.
I've always thought that the first half is always the hardest half.
It can be because it's that challenge of not knowing what everything is.
I should visualize it as you're climbing the hill.
Hmm?
Then when you get to the top, I'm halfway there. And boom, we've been here before. That doesn't mean I'm going to have to move.
I still have some bumps and bruises.
Yeah, so we get there. It's exciting. And I use June as a lot of the reggae colorization throughout this stuff. So you're going to be even more excited.
Love that.
Plus, it's our elemental part. So we transition there. But anyways, enjoy these 4 stories with the hunger and how desire awakens life. We will see you tomorrow.
Love you guys. See ya.
Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1, Inanna, the desire that descends and rises again. In the earliest cities where rivers carved life into the land and human longing first took shape in temples and stories, there was a goddess who did not remain distant from desire, but embodied it fully, fiercely, and without apology. This was Inanna, queen of heaven and earth, whose presence moved through love, power, longing, and transformation. She was not a quiet force, nor a restrained one. She was hunger itself, not only for union or beauty, but for experience, for depth, for the full range of what it meant to live. Inanna did not exist outside of desire. She was the current that stirred it, the impulse that moved life forward when stillness had settled too long. In the world above, she was radiant, adorned with the me, the sacred powers that govern civilization, sexuality, kingship, and divine authority. She knew her influence, wielded it with precision, and yet, even within this fullness, something stirred within her that could not be satisfied by dominion alone. Desire, in its truest form, does not rest in possession. It seeks transformation. And so, Inanna turned her gaze toward the underworld, toward the realm ruled by her sister, Ereshkigal, a place not of light but of shadow, of endings, of truths that cannot be avoided. It was not conquest that drew her there, but something deeper. An urge that could not be ignored, a hunger to understand what lay beneath all that she was. Before she descended, she prepared, instructing her servant, Ninshibur, to seek help if she did not return. Then she adorned herself, placing upon her body the symbols of her power, crown, necklace, breastplate, and garments that marked her as queen. Yet as she passed through each gate of the underworld, she was required to surrender something. At the first gate, her crown was taken. At the second, her jewelry. At the third, her garments. One by one, she was stripped, not by force, but by the law of the place she had chosen to enter. By the time she reached the innermost chamber, she stood not as queen, not as goddess adorned, but as she was beneath it all, unguarded, unprotected, and exposed to the truth of that realm. There, before Ereshkigal, Inanna was judged, struck down, and hung upon a hook. Her life suspended, her descent complete. The world above felt her absence. Fertility ceased, desire itself stilled. For without her, the current of life could not move. Yet her story does not end in that stillness. For what descends through true desire does not vanish. It transforms. Through the efforts set in motion before her descent, aid arrived, and Inanna was restored, brought back from the underworld, not unchanged, but altered, having moved through death and returned. Her return was not without consequence, for the laws of the underworld required balance. Someone must take her place. Inanna moved through the world, seeking one who could descend in her stead. And when she found Dumuzi, her consort, seated in comfort, untouched by grief at her absence, she chose him. He would descend, and through this exchange the cycles of life and death, of presence and absence, would be set into motion. The land would know seasons, times of fertility and times of barrenness, all governed by the movement of desire, of descent and return. Inanna's story is not one of simple longing, but of the depth of what desire truly is. It is not only the reaching toward what is wanted, but the willingness to be changed by that reaching. Her hunger led her into darkness, into loss, into transformation, and through it she became something more than what she had been. The people understood that desire is not to be diminished or feared, but honored and understood, for it is the force that initiates movement, that breaks stagnation, that drives life beyond what it has been. Thus, Inanna remains as the embodiment of desire that awakens life, not as something shallow or fleeting, but as a sacred force that calls for courage, for willingness, for the strength to descend and rise again. In every longing that cannot be ignored, in every pull towards something deeper, there echoes her presence, a reminder that desire is not merely wanting, but becoming, and that what we seek has the power to transform us if we are willing to follow it fully. Story 2. Kama, the arrow that awakens desire. In the world where existence is shaped not only by duty and order, but by the unseen forces that stir the heart and move the spirit, there exists a presence who does not command through strength, but through longing. This is Kama, the god of desire, whose power is not found in force, but in awakening, in the quiet moment when stillness shifts and something within begins to reach outward. He is often depicted as youthful, radiant, carrying a bow made of sugarcane and arrows tipped not with iron, but with flowers. Symbols not of harm, but of attraction, of the subtle pull that draws one being toward another, that calls life into motion through connection. Kama does not create desire where there is none, but reveals what lies dormant, what waits beneath the surface of awareness. His arrows do not wound the body, but stir the heart, awakening longing where it has been quiet, bringing attention to what has been unseen. In this way, he moves through the world not as a disruptor, but as a catalyst, a force that initiates movement, that draws beings out of isolation and into relationship. Without him, the world would remain still, ordered perhaps. Without him, the world would remain still, ordered perhaps, but without the sparks that drive life forward, that creates union, that brings forth new existence. Yet desire, as Kama embodies it, is not without complexity, for it exists alongside discipline, alongside restraint, alongside the structures that hold the world in balance. Among the gods, there came a time when Shiva, the great ascetic, withdrew from the world, turning inward, immersed in meditation so deep that all outward movement ceased. His stillness, though powerful, brought imbalance, for without his participation the cycles of creation could not continue. The gods, recognizing this, turned to Kama, knowing that only desire could reach where force could not, that only longing could awaken what had been turned away. Kama approached with care, for he understood the nature of what he was about to do. Shiva was not one to be moved easily. nor one to welcome interruption. Yet the world itself required this action, and so Kama took his place, drawing his bow, aiming not to harm but to awaken. When the arrow was released, it carried with it the essence of desire, the gentle yet undeniable force that stirs the heart. It struck Shiva, and for a moment the great ascetic felt what he had set aside, the pull of connection, the movement of longing. But Shiva's response was not as Kama had hoped. In the intensity of his awakening, in the sudden disruption of his deep stillness, Shiva opened his third eye, releasing a fire so powerful that it reduced Kama to ash. Desire itself, in that moment, was burned away, its form destroyed by the very force it sought to awaken. The world felt this loss, for without Kama, desire could no longer move as it once had. The balance shifted, and the absence of longing created a stillness that was no longer natural, but empty. Yet desire, like all fundamental forces, cannot be fully destroyed. Though Kama's body was gone, his essence remained, now unseen, moving without form, present not as a visible figure, but as a feeling, as a presence within the hearts of beings. He became Ananga, the bodiless one, existing without physical form, yet no less powerful. In this new state, desire was no longer something that could be pointed to, but something that could only be experienced, something that arose from within rather than appearing from without. In this transformation, a deeper understanding emerged, that desire is not an external force imposed upon life, but an internal one, arising from the nature of existence itself. Kama's story reveals that longing is not separate from life, but part of its foundation, that desire must exist in balance, that it cannot override all else without consequence, that it must move alongside awareness, alongside understanding. Thus, Kama remains, not as a figure easily seen, but as a presence felt, in the moment when something within begins to stir, when stillness gives way to motion, when life reaches beyond itself. In every longing, in every connection, in every act that arises from the desire to experience, to create, to join, there is an echo of Kama, the reminder that wanting is not weakness, but the force that brings life into motion, that awakens what would otherwise remain still. Story 3, Freyja, the longing that calls life forward. In the northern lands where frost and fire exist side by side, where the earth hardens in winter and softens again under returning light, there is a presence who does not shy away from desire, but carries it openly, powerfully, and without apology. This is Freyja, goddess of love, beauty, fertility, and longing, whose nature is not divided between softness and strength, but holds both fully. She is not the only one who delights in connection, but the one who understands the depth of wanting, the ache that moves through the heart when something is sought and not yet held. In her, desire is not a fleeting impulse, but a force that shapes life itself, drawing it forward through attraction, through emotion, through the need to connect and to create. Freyja's presence is often associated with beauty, yet her beauty is not passive. It is magnetic, active, something that stirs movement in the world. She rides a chariot drawn by cats, creatures known for both independence and closeness, reflecting her own nature, one that does not belong to another, yet invites connection. Around her neck she wears, Brisingamen, a necklace of great power, forged by dwarves, radiant with a light that reflects not only outer beauty, but inner vitality. This necklace is not given freely, but obtained through her own will, through a willingness to act upon her desire, to claim what calls to her. In this, she embodies a truth often overlooked, that desire is not only felt, but pursued, that longing requires movement, choice, and the courage to reach out for what is wanted. Yet Freyja's story is not one of ease, for desire does not always lead to immediate fulfillment. Among the tales told of her, there are those that speak of loss, of longing that is not answered, of the pain that accompanies deep connection. When her husband, Othar, disappears, Freyja does not turn away from her grief. She searches for him, moving through worlds, her tears falling as drops of gold, a symbol of sorrow that is not hidden, but expressed. In this, she reveals that desire and loss are not separate, that to love deeply is to risk absence, that longing continues even when what is desired is not present. Her grief does not diminish her, but deepens her, expanding her capacity to feel, to understand, to remain open even in the face of absence. Freyja's domain extends beyond love alone in the cycles of life and death, for she is also connected to the afterlife, receiving half of those who fall in battle into her hall, Folkvanger. In this, she holds a space not only for those who live, but for those who have passed, recognizing that desire does not end in life, but moves through it, connecting what has been with what will be. Her presence bridges these realms, showing that longing is not confined to a single moment, but is part of a larger cycle, one that continues beyond what is immediately seen. The people who honored her understood that desire is not only about possession, but about connection, about the threads that bind beings together across time and space. In the world shaped by her influence, desire is not something to be suppressed, but something to be understood, to be honored as a force that brings life into motion. Without it, there would be no union, no creation, no continuation of the cycles that sustain existence. But Freyja also shows that desire is not without its challenges, that it requires resilience, that it asks for the ability to hold both joy and sorrow, both fulfillment and longing. She stands as a figure who does not turn away from these complexities, but embraces them, embodying the full range of what it means to feel, to want, to reach. Thus, Freyja remains as the living embodiment of desire that awakens life, not as a simple or shallow force, but as a profound one, capable of shaping the world in ways both seen and unseen. In every moment where the heart stirs, where something calls from beyond the present, where life moves forward through the pull of connection, there is her presence. She is the longing that does not fade, the force that calls life beyond itself, the reminder that desire, in all its forms, is not something to be feared, but something to be lived, to be understood, and to be honored as one of the deepest currents within existence. Story 4, Oshun, the sweet waters that call life to move. In the lands where rivers wind through earth and forest, where water carries both nourishment and memory, there is known a presence who does not command through force, but through attraction, through the quiet yet undeniable pull that draws life toward itself. This is Oshun, the Orisha of fresh waters, of love, beauty, fertility, and desire, whose power flows not in stillness, but in movement. She is not separate from the river, but is the river, her essence carried in its currents, in the way it nourishes the land, in the way it reflects light, in the way it moves continuously, shaping everything it touches. In her, desire is not a disruption, but a necessary force, the current that brings life into motion when it has become stagnant. In the earliest stories, when the world was being shaped and the Orishas were given the task of forming it, Oshun was not initially included among those who were recognized for their importance. The others, believing strength alone would be enough, began their work without her, attempting to create order through structure and force. Yet what they built did not hold. The land remained barren, the efforts unfruitful. The world lacking the vitality needed to sustain life. It was only when they turned to Oshun, when they acknowledged the absence of what she carried, that the balance began to shift. For without desire, without attraction, and without the sweetness that draws beings together, creation cannot fully take form. Oshun entered the process not with command, but with presence, bringing with her the qualities that had been missing: connection, flow, and the ability to inspire movement where there had been none. Oshun's nature is often described as gentle, yet this gentleness is not weakness. It is a form of power that does not need to force itself upon the world, but instead invites, draws, and transforms through its presence. The river does not demand that the land receive it, yet over time it shapes the land more deeply than any sudden force could. In the same way, Oshun moves through the world, influencing through attraction, through the pull of beauty, through the quiet insistence that life moves toward what it desires. She is associated with sweetness, with honey, with offerings that reflect the nature of what she gives. Not harsh or bitter, but inviting, nourishing, and sustaining. Yet even honey, if not respected, can overwhelm. And Oshun's story reminds that desire must be approached with awareness, that what draws life forward must also be honored, not taken without thought. There are stories of Oshun withdrawing when she is not respected, when her presence is dismissed or overlooked. In these moments, the world reflects her absence. The rivers dry, the land loses its vitality. Relationships falter, and life itself becomes strained. This is not punishment, but reflection, a demonstration of what occurs when desire, connection, and the flow of life are ignored. When she returns, this is not through force, but through restoration, through the reestablishment of balance, through the recognition of her role within the greater whole. The people who honor her understand that she is not to be controlled, but to be engaged with, to be respected as a vital part of existence. They approach her with offerings, with song, with dance, acknowledging the movement she brings, the life she sustains. Oshun's connection to fertility extends beyond the physical into the emotional and spiritual, for she governs not only the creation of life, but the connections that allow life to flourish. She is present in relationships, in the bonds that form between individuals, in the attraction that brings people together, in the emotions that deepen those connections. Without her, life may exist, but it does not thrive. She brings a quality that transforms existence into experience, that allows life to be felt, to be enjoyed, to be lived fully. In this way, she embodies the truth that desire is not separate from life, but integral to it, that wanting is not something to be suppressed, but understood and aligned. As the river continues to flow, shaping the land, nourishing what grows along its banks, Oshun remains present within it, her influence carried forward through every current, through every reflection of light upon the water. She stands as the embodiment of desire that awakens life, the reminder that what is wanted has the power to move the world, to bring forth what would otherwise remain dormant. In every moment where life stirs, where connection forms, where movement replaces stillness, there is her presence, the quiet yet powerful force that calls life forward. Thus, Oshun endures as a sweet current beneath all creation, the one who ensures that life does not merely exist but flows, that it does not remain still but moves, that it is not empty but filled with the richness of connection and experience. She is a desire that does not force but invites, the movement that does not demand but draws. And in her, the world remembers that to live is not only to be, but to feel, to want, and to move toward what calls. Daily Thread for May 15th. Desire stirs what has gone still. Longing pulls life into motion. What is wanted reveals what is alive. Movement begins with a quiet ache. To feel deeply is to awaken. What calls to you carries direction. Desire is the beginning of becoming. Life follows what it reaches toward.